Games nowadays don't come out necessarily in the best shape possible. They sometimes have problems, issues, major design defects, gargantuan holes in their mechanics that make you wonder if the people making them were drunk, but over time they do improve, and these are the top 7 video games that have improved over time. Games for which the development did not stop at version 1.0. Games for which the developers said to themselves, you know what, we can do better, and we can do it better without charging people extra money, so let's knock off with the DLC, with the expansions, and let's make this the game that should have been made in the first place, but we couldn't do it for various reasons. So it's games that got better with time, a lot better, but not because of some expansion that you had to pay for or because of some fan-made updates. No, it's the developers themselves making the game better. And just so you won't ask, removing the guy that kept yelling about his many cheeses is not a way to improve a game, Larian. He was the heart and soul of Divinity Original Sin. That being said, let's get it started with number 7. Diablo 3 is not in this show. Instead, we have Path of Exile. This game started out in a shape that, well, I wouldn't call it rough. It was actually kind of okay even from the get-go. But the main disadvantage that Path of Exile had was that it didn't have that much content in it. Just 3 acts that, yes, you could traverse in any way you wanted with various classes, with very interesting builds possible, looking for loot, but mostly for more skill gems so you would get that combo that you just felt was the right one for you. But again, just reacts, they had that's not a lot. So they added more for free. They first added 1 extra act, then they added a bunch of dungeons, then they added more events, then they added advanced classes, and now they're gonna add acts 5 through 9 and a whole goddamn bunch of other stuff in there. For free, you know, without charging people money. It sort of boggles the mind exactly how they're in business when they're just throwing away so much potentially lucrative DLC. I mean, they haven't even taken 1 class of characters and made them exclusive to people that pay for it. Clearly they don't know how to properly market and sell their video game, but they do know how to improve it. Path of Exile is consistently a better game, and more interesting to play than some other titles. Number 6. Marvel Heroes. When this thing was released, it was kinda crap, and it was proper crap, like you wonder why did I make this? It's just a grind fest with no actual enjoyment in it. It would be perfect for South Korea or China or people with no taste, which, come to think of it, does cover a couple of billion people, but it was not a good game. And it appeared that the developer was doing some shady stuff, like changing the name of the game so that previous reviews from Metacritic would not be applied to the new version, even though it was the same game with just a different name. But the thing is, it wasn't just the same game, they actually changed it. They made it less of a grind fest, they made it less of a, you're gonna have to play a bunch of hours with this character to get the character that maybe you want, or just pay us directly. You know, they just let you play with whatever you wanted. They made it fun. Somehow, they took the idea of a Diablo-like game with Marvel characters and turned it from a repetitive grind fest to something that's actually fun. Something that's actually playable by people that are not currently in a coma. Not saying it's the greatest game ever made now, but oh my god, is it better. Heck of a lot better. Number 5. The Elder Scrolls Online. When it was released, I said something along the lines of, had The Elder Scrolls Online been released in 2008, it would have made for some interesting competition for Age of Conan and then would have been promptly forgotten, because the game was frankly boring, redundant, absolutely uninspired, and just a rehash of every lame idea ever seen in an MMO. But the most flagrant bit was that this was supposed to be an Elder Scrolls game, but it wasn't. It did not behave like an Elder Scrolls game. It did not have the characteristics of an Elder Scrolls game. It did not resemble an Elder Scrolls game at all. But over the last couple of years, they have started to actually improve it. Now, I'm not saying it's good. I played it again about 2 years ago. Still crap, but again, they actually added the guilds from Elder Scrolls. They've added player housing. They made it behave a bit more like an open world Elder Scrolls game and not a bad MMO. Sorry, an MMO in general. And then if you actually want to see how well the game behaves now compared to what it used to be, you can actually play it for free. There's a free week, yeah, not a weekend, an entire week available right now up until the 18th of April. So go try it. See for yourself if it's still boring as hell, or if all those newsletters they keep sending me week after week for I don't even remember how many years were actually telling the truth. Number 4. Final Fantasy XIV. When it comes to disasters being turned into something good, well, there's probably very few other games that can match Final Fantasy XIV. I mean, this game was a complete wreck at launch. On launch, it made Elder Scrolls Online seem competent, seem innovative. It was just a pile of crap. It was something that seemed to be spawned by a person's mind if that person saw an MMO in 2002 and decided to not improve upon it at all. And not a person that saw a good MMO, no, one of the crappy ones. I mean, this game almost killed Square Enix. Because of this game, a bunch of people were fired from a bunch of other studios who were actually making good games that sold well. But not well enough to compensate for this clusterfuck that cost, well, roughly around $400 million. Plus what it took to turn it into an actual game. They apocalypsed the crap out of the original one and turn it into Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, which is actually, from what I've been told, haven't played it, it's a good game. And it's profitable. And it's not horrible. And it's not made by people that are so far up their own behinds that they can't see the sun. Now, why would I say that? Because everybody that saw the original version of the game at E3 and all those press conferences before those trade shows kinda told them, hey, this kinda sucks. Is this really the final version of the game? And thankfully, well, yeah, it was, but they made another final version of the game, which is actually, from what I've been told, kinda good. Number 3, Rainbow Six Siege. This game really had a tough time at the beginning. Not because the mechanics were bad, not because it was a bad idea for a game, but because it was made by Ubisoft. And Ubisoft is known primarily for two things: horrible servers and complete lack of understanding of how multiplayer works. I know this is a dedicated player of Assassin's Creed Brotherhoods and Revelations multiplayer as well as the crew. Now there's a game that did not improve with time. In the release version of Rainbow Six Siege, servers were bad, really bad, and there wasn't much in the way of cheat protection, which for a competitive multiplayer FPS, that's kind of horrible. And if you complain about the lack of proper anti-cheat protection on Facebook, Ubisoft employees from Romania, the same ones that would call you a COD fanboy if you said that the Division was boring, would come and say, well, every shooter has cheaters, you can't expect us to do anything better. Thankfully, this game was not developed by Ubisoft Bucharest or Craiova, so they actually added in anti-cheat measures, and guess what? The game is much better now. Oh sure, it still has the occasional endlessly looping loading screen, but there's actually a technical test right now for an improved multiplayer component, like the infrastructure, I mean. mean. I was actually invited to it, but I really don't want to download the game again and have 2 parallel versions of it running. I'll just wait for them to finish, and I kinda don't want to be a beta tester for Ubisoft anymore because I've already been one and I'm tired of it. Pay me if you want me to beta test stuff, okay? Also fire some of the people in Romania. They really don't know what they're talking about. So yeah, the game now is good. Like, it's replaced Counter-Strike as my go-to 10-15 minute shoot fest. Sadly, there has been an influx of Russians because there was the $15 version at one time, and well, it's still now available, and that can be disappointing. And it's not, I don't necessarily have something against Russians, but there's a certain stigma associated with 12-year-olds from Russia playing video games they shouldn't be allowed to play, you know, because of the age thing and because of the screaming over the microphone thing. A microphone made in the Cretaceous period when dinosaurs roamed the earth and said swear words in Russian and kept fusing the hostage. Okay, so in that aspect, maybe the game got worse, but technically it is a superior product, though I kinda wish they had kept the rundown of what happened around, with who died when and where and by what. It sort of made things interesting. Yeah, slow but kind of interesting. Number 2, Mech Warrior Online. I remember when version 1.0 came out of beta. Man, what a disappointment it was. That was at a point in time where the game just seemed dead. Yeah, it was out of beta, but it slowed to a snail's pace in terms of development. Getting a new mech or getting anything in the game was very slow because there were just not enough rewards being passed around at the end of a match. If you used a drone, a UAV in that match, and you still won, yeah, odds are you would barely recoup your cost. It seemed dead on arrival, honestly. Especially since the community warfare aspect was still not in there. Whoops. Oh yeah, and they were selling $50 gold. No wait, I think they were $200 golden mechs. Yeah, that's a great way to start off a launch of a game. Thankfully, it has improved a lot. Oh my god, have they improved it. Now, some people may say that this is a consequence of the previous publisher of the game no longer being the previous publisher of the game and not having any ties to the game anymore. Some say that Piranha finally got their act together. Regardless of what happened, the game is better now. It has a lot more mechs, it has a lot more maps, it has community warfare, it has vastly improved rewards, and it's going to get even bigger this year because they're changing the entire technology level of the game. I mean, you're gonna get medium range missiles, you're gonna get mechs from a more advanced period of time of Battletech. It's gonna be amazing. That's all I'm gonna say. Well, that's what I hope. Because so far it's been a bumpy ride, but it's been a hell of a lot better than it used to be. And number 1 is Warframe. Much like a lot of the games on this list, the initial version of Warframe was bad. Objectively bad. It was a grind fest with no joy to it. There was just killing the same 3 types of dudes in the same corridors, hoping they didn't get stuck in a tunnel somewhere or fall through the map. Rinse, repeat, uninstall, and maybe hope it'll get better someday. And it did. And am I glad it did. I was not a fan of the game. The initial version was just horrible. But they've improved it so much. They've added actual content to the game. They've added a story. They've added characters. They've added better gameplay. They've added better maps, better enemies, better loot, better systems, better everything. They actually made the idea of you're a space ninja playable, enjoyable, fun. Sure, it took them a couple of years, but Digital Extremes pulled it off. Now, I still haven't gone back to play much of it, but hey, it's good to know that it's actually been improved. Like, improved to the point where this is a big hit now, and it's free. Well, there's a metric ton of microtransactions, but it's free to play, and it's enjoyable. Shocking, I know. Well, that would be for the top 7 video games that have improved over time. I would have liked to actually add 2 other games to this list, but hey, it's just 7, so I couldn't fit them in, so I'll give them a special mention. They are The Witcher 1 and The Witcher 2, for which CD Projekt went above and beyond. With the first one, they redid all the voice work, They redid all of the dialogue, they redid the interface, they improved the performance, the loading times, the animations, and trust me when I say that the final scene of The Witcher 1 in the original version was horrible, but the way it was done with the voices in the second version, it was one of the most touching endings to a villain I've ever seen, because you kind of just felt the realization on his face at the end of what he was. It was amazing. And The Witcher 2, with The Witcher 2 they kind of owed us, like they released a pre-port of the Xbox version on PC, a beta version for the Xbox version. That's basically what The Witcher 2 on PC was, but over time they did improve it. They added PC features like support for resolutions, but most of all they actually changed their own story. They redid the last chapter of the game. They added more to it. They expanded, extended it. They remade that game so much that the guide that came with the game is no longer valid because they changed just about everything in it. And they did it for the better. And hey, they didn't have to do it with The Witcher 3, they got it all in one. And I'd give one more special mention to Payday 2 because the developers finally realized after some time that, hey, you know what? Maybe these career criminals can carry more than 2 zip ties on their persons without having to upgrade the skill first. Yeah, a massive improvement, I know. If I've missed one, make sure to name a game that was improved over time by the developers in the comments. What's the one that just impressed the hell out of you of how it evolved over time? And if you're wondering, yes, there will be a mirror top 7 to this one soon.